again, crafters, it's Cynthia. I am back with another holiday card, and actually this one could be holiday or just a winter greeting card, so it's a little more versatile. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and use the Warmest Wishes stamp set. The designer is Birdie Brown from My Favorite Things, and this is just such a sweet little stamp set, and she is standing there holding out her skirt to try to catch the snowflakes that are drifting down. And I also have the matching die that goes with it, and as you can see, this is one of those solid dies, and I'll show you a couple different ways that you can use a die that's solid like this. So I've got her mounted up on a block, and the sentiment that I took out of that set says, "Sending a flurry of love." So that'll be really cute. And what I did is, in my silhouette cut files, I found a really wonderful snowy background cut file, and I went ahead and cut it out, and I made sure that it was just a little bit smaller than my A2 card base. So this is an 80-pound weight Neenah Solar White base that I'm going to use, and this is the snow cone paper from My Favorite Things, and it's just a really soft light blue, which is really pretty. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach this flat to the card front. Because of all those little holes, now you can see the white coming through, and it looks like snow. So that's the effect that I'm going for. And I wanted her to be standing in a little bit of snow, so I just took more of that same Neenah Solar White cardstock and just hand cut just a little soft, gentle snowdrift shape. And I'm going to, I made it purposefully long so I can trim it, but it's going to sit across the bottom just like this. And again, this will be flush to the card front. So I think what I'll do is go ahead and start with the sentiment stamping. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink pad here, and I'm going to prep the surface with my anti-static bag. And it's going to be to the lower left here, but I want to make sure that, because I know that I'm going to be trimming some, so I don't want to get too close to the edge. So let me go ahead and get this nice and inky. And I've never used this sentiment before. Actually, I've never used any of these stamps, but I rubbed it on the palm of my hand first just to take away that top layer of shiny residue that's kind of on the polymer stamps, photopolymer stamps. All right, so anyway, I'm going to put it a little bit to the lower left here without going too crazy. Give that a nice press. I have one of those stamping pads, and do you think that I ever think about bringing it out? No. So that's kind of a bummer. Anyway, there we go. And of course right now you can't see it at all, but it is there, I promise. So I'm going to just use some sterling silver embossing powder. This came from a little kit of embossing powders that I bought last winter, and they had a kit of all different silvers and a kit of all different golds. So this is the sterling silver, and since they came in a package, they weren't individually labeled, so I just went ahead and wrote it down and taped it to the front. And then I like to do a little sample of what the embossing powder looks like, so I just stamped out that little donut shape and embossed it, and that way at one glance I can pick the silver that I want. Okay, what is up with all these little hairs? My goodness. Hey. Okay. I'm not much of a housekeeper, but that's ridiculous. So I'm going to funnel back my extra. It's always a good idea to cap your embossing powder because that little tall skinny bottle could so easily fall over. Okay, now this time I want to kind of take a look at it, make sure I don't see a lot of embossing powder that got anywhere else, so that's good. So I'll turn the volume down while I run my heat gun because it's loud. All right, so that is that. I'm going to give it a little shake just to kind of wave it around and let it cool down. You never want to immediately pick up and start touching. As pretty as it is, you do need to give it a chance to set, because when it first melts and it's still nice and hot, you can definitely smear it if you put your finger in it. So you just want to give it a second. It doesn't take long at all for that to set. Okay, so that is the sentiment, and I think it's cute. So let's see, what should I do next? I think I'm going to go ahead and attach it down to the card front, and for this I will just use my tape runner. Kind of follow along. Alright, and I want it flush with the bottom. Alright, I think that's good. And then I'm going to go ahead and just trim those extra pieces. And this way, because I didn't pre-trim it, I can make sure that it's absolutely perfect at the end. All right, there. Perfect. Okay. Gosh, sorry. I keep those scissors in a tin. That probably sounded like an avalanche in the background. Okay. Now, like I said, though, I do want to mount this completely flush, completely flat to the surface so that you really can see the white underneath all those little holes. So I think I might as well go ahead. And this time, because I need to kind of follow a lot of those little nooks and crannies, I'm going to use my liquid glue. But yeah, I was so excited when I found this cut file, because I know that there are cover-up dies which will, you know, it's a die and it's big enough, you know, it's probably an A2 sized die, but those are expensive. They're always over $20, and I just bought a 99-cent cut file, and I can manipulate it with the software. So I'm not knocking dies, because they're awesome and they have a place in the world for sure. But for somebody who's trying to be budget conscious, this is a great alternative. And I have that machine, so of course I want to use it whenever I possibly can. All right, that's good enough. Okay, so let me get this settled down. As I'm making this card, it is trying so hard to snow. And there's little flakes in the air. We're supposed to get several inches, but I really hope it picks up, or it's going to take about a week to build up at the rate it's doing. Oh well. It's still pretty. Okay, there. So cute. Gosh, I love that. And really, this is so simple. You could make several of these cards all at the same time with little effort. Okay, so let me put my card base aside, and here is my pretty little girl on the stamping block. And there's a couple different ways that I could do this. Since this die is solid, you can go ahead and run it through your machine and get your base like this, and then just line it up carefully and stamp it down. and you know, generally you can get a pretty good impression. But there are a lot of people who absolutely can't stand to do that. They like to be as perfect as possible, and they always get their stamp a little askew. So it's a personal preference. You can do what you'd like. But I'm going to color this little girl with my Copics, and I think it would be a little awkward to try to color with markers on that small piece. So I'm going to do things a little different. I'm going to take a piece of that same Neenah Solar White, and I'm going to ink her up with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And this is a really nice ink for many applications, but it's also Copic friendly, meaning you can stamp your images with the Memento and it's not going to smear. The Copic inks are not going to make the Memento smear. So you want to be aware of that when you're buying Copics with the intention of using them to color your stamped images. You want to make sure that the ink that you use to stamp those images is Copic friendly. So I happen to know that Memento black ink is one of them. All right. So there she is. Isn't she sweet? Okay, so that's good. So again, I think I'm just going to go ahead and turn the music up and speed up the coloring a little bit, and then at the bottom of the screen I'll flash some notations about the different Copic colors that I'm using. So sit back and relax, and let's get this going. Okay, so I think I'm done with most of the coloring. I'm going to go back and add some details after I cut her out. Now I'm going to show you a different way to cut her out. Originally I had talked about going ahead and die cutting first, then stamping, then coloring. But the other thing that you can do is, let me go ahead and trim her out a little bit now that she's mostly done. And here's a little trick. What I did is I took a piece of good, this is the 80 pound again. You want a relatively thicker cardstock that's going to hold up. And I went ahead and popped her out. So that's fine. I trimmed her relatively close to the edges. And now I'm going to use this like a template. And I'm going to set this down. And what I'm doing is I am acting as though I'm lining up the die with her. So there it is. Grab some of my low-tack painter's tape, and I'm going to press it against my hand a little bit to help remove some of the sticky. And once I have this just exactly where I want it to cut out, I'm going to tape it down, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, and then now she's outlined pretty much just where I want her to cut, and I'm going to take the die again and I'm going to lay it down, and you'll feel, just want to slide it around just a little bit, and just like a puzzle piece, this die, those cut ridges here on the front are going to nestle in to that opening where it was cut out previous. And now you can see I'm rubbing my fingers, but the die isn't moving because it's in place. So now I can, if I want to be real careful, I'll take one more piece of tape. And washi tape is also an excellent thing to use. Everybody has at least one washi tape, and your typical washi tape has, you know, 1,000 yards more than you're ever going to use. So washi tape is a good, inexpensive, low-tack tape to use if you don't have a roll of painter's tape. And remember that this piece of paper, or this piece, excuse me, that you colored her on is all waste paper anyway. So let me grab my die cut machine, my little cutting pad is well loved, so I will run it through. That thing's heavy. Okay, and now let's see what I have here. Now there's my little girl all cut out and colored and ready to go. So that is just a little trick if you have, and see, here's where she came from, but that's just a nice little trick to use, and it just takes you a tiny bit of time and a little bit of tape, and then you're good to go. And this tape will just pull off this template, and then of course I'm going to keep this template with the stamp and die set, and then in the future, anytime I want to do what I just did, I've got the template, and it'll ensure that I get a very nice cutout even though I can't see through the die. Now that she is here, let's bring her background. And she is, of course, going to be standing about right here. And the cute thing is that now she looks like, because the stamp set comes with a little bit of snowflakes here, and you can, of course, stamp that all over the place, and you can use your sticky ink and make it white on a darker cardstock, or there's a million things you can do to make that look really fabulous. But I really wanted to use this background since I just bought it. And we could pop her up on a layer of foam as well. I'm thinking maybe I will, because everything else is flush. Let me get some, I have a little baggie here with a whole bunch of odds and ends of foam tape. Now that I've got foam on the back of her, I'm going to go ahead. Actually, you know what? Before I attach her down, I'm going to do what I had mentioned, because you know me, I can't can't control myself around glitter. So this is, what do I have here? A Zig glue pen. And I've seen other people using this pen like this, and it's very cool. Let me get a little scrap and get that pen going. Okay, cool. So this will be messy, of course, but life goes on. So I'm going to go ahead and get a nice bit of glue there, and I'm going to sprinkle. Go ahead and let that set up just for a little bit, and then I'll be back. Alright, so that has had a chance to set up just a bit. And the nice thing about that Zig glue is that, as you saw, it starts out blue, but as it dries, it becomes completely clear. So that's kind of nice. You can sort of keep track of how soon it dries. Now I'm just using a little soft dry paintbrush to kind of whisk away a little bit of the extra sparkle. You're always going to have one random tiny bit, but that's okay. Alright, I'll get this out of the way and clean it up later. And finally, we will attach her down to the project. Okay, so the one final detail, I'm going to take my black gel pen, get that going against my finger a bit, and I'm going to dot her eye with this, because that will give it a little bit of bright reflection, which I think is so sweet for her eyes. And then I didn't do too terrible with the Copic coloring this time, but you can also use your white gel pen to correct any little overages here of your ink. You know, if it bleeds outside the edge of the stamp, then you can just carefully add a little bit of your gel, and that'll sort of erase. You can also use one of their colorless blenders, and I've had mixed results with that. Sometimes I make it messier, which is strange. I'm sure that's something only I could do, but I'm just going to go with the gel pen for today since these little spots are so small. And you wouldn't even really have to do this if you didn't want to. Okay, well, I'm going to call her done. I think it turned out really, really sweet. It's pretty simple, but it's awfully precious. And thank you so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun, and I hope that you come back soon. I'll be putting up more videos about every 2 or 3 days. I've got some videos lined up to go out. So if you like this video, please click like. And if you want to become a subscriber, that would be wonderful. And then that way you get to see all of my new videos as soon as they come out. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves. If you're facing some winter weather out there, please be very, very careful and take care. And I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.